Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Poz. With me today, very special guest, member of the Koloff family dynasty. Of course, was in Smoky Mountain, WWF, WCW, my God, ECW. He was everywhere, Mr. Vladimir Koloff. Vladimir, welcome in. How you doing?
How are you? Thank you for having me. I'm great.
What is going on in your world? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been retired from the ring, from competition for the last 26 years. I live in North Carolina still. I own a small farm that I enjoy working every day. Just being a gentleman farmer, so to speak. Maybe a little bit short on the gentleman sometimes, but yeah, I enjoy being outside and being in the air and the sunshine.
But you'll be making a comeback of sorts, right? You'll be coming back to the wrestling world, kind of, sort of, in a way.
Absolutely, yeah, kind of in a big way. Nikita and I and our nephew Neil have come together under the Koloff family dynasty reunion tour. That is from the first date is the 21st of this month, and the tour goes we have bookings all the way to the end of the year, and then we have several bookings next year as well already, and we're taking more bookings for Nikita, for myself, for Neil, for all of us collectively, where we will be attending the wrestling conventions, Comic Con conventions, trading cards, sports memorabilia shows, honoring the life and legacy of our great illustrious uncle, Ivan Koloff, the Russian Bear. And on some of these tours or some of these shows or dates, Ivan's widow, Renee, and her granddaughter, Melody, will be joining us as well. And they will have stories and pictures, personal stories, personal pictures of Ivan and Melody with her granddad. And they will also have Ivan's WWE Hall of Fame ring with them, and they'll be displaying that. But so it's Nikita and myself plus our nephew Neil that will be on tour all over. We're all over the U.S. We have some tentative dates. Excuse me. We have some tentative dates for the UK and for the continent of Europe next year. So it has exploded, and we're all the way from Boston to New York City to Jacksonville, Florida, Tampa, Florida, Houston, Texas, St. Louis, Missouri, Nashville, possibly Portland, Oregon next year, Winston-Salem, North Carolina this year, Charlotte, North Carolina, just everywhere. It has snowballed in the last 2.5 months with our new agent, which is New Breed Talent Agency and also Wrestle Breed Productions. So if you're interested in booking us, Nikita, myself, Neil, etc., the Koloff family dynasty at your events, this could be the last time that Nikita and I are together. Could be the last time that Ivan's widow and granddaughter are with us all together. So we're encouraging people to get out and see us when we are in the neighborhood, so to speak.
I love it. Rewinding back, how do you become Vladimir Koloff? Where does that come about? I know obviously you and Ivan teamed up, but how does that, like the genesis of it, how does that come to be?
I broke into the business, or excuse me, I aspired to get into the pro wrestling business in late 90, early 91. And a very dear friend of mine, prior to the professional wrestling business, was none other than the eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. And I had met Andre and Frenchie and Jackie Bernard in 1987 when they came to my farm, my family's farm, ranch, whatever you want to call it. And Andre, I don't know if a lot of people knew it, but Andre owned a ranch here in North Carolina, about 2.5, 3 hours from me. And Andre loved everything Texas for whatever reason. Cowboy boots, cowboy hats, pickup trucks, board fence, tractors, everything Texas. So somewhere along the line with Andre's travels, he saw Texas Longhorn cattle somewhere. And at the time, in 85, 86, 87, from 85 until 6 years ago, I bred and raised registered Texas Longhorn cattle. And so Andre, or actually Frenchie, no, it was actually Jackie, called here and wanted to come up and said that she was going to bring her husband and a friend of theirs. And they wanted to buy some cattle, or potentially buy some cattle. And so my mom and dad, accommodated them and, told me that they were going to be here to look at my cows and what have you. And long story short, they bought 10 cows, 1 steer, which is a surgically altered male. And then they bought several baby calves that were with their mothers, the cows, and they bought 1 bull. And so subsequently, Andre got into the Longhorn business, and we became very close friends with them from the standpoint that we never made a big to-do. My family never made a big to-do over Andre as who he was.
But they knew who he was, right?
Oh yeah, we all knew him. I mean, yeah, but we never, we never asked him for an autograph. We never asked him for a picture. Right. He was our friend, and we wanted him to feel that he was our friend. And so I got in. I thought, well, who better to get me into the wrestling business than Andre? So when in '91, when I decided I was going to turn pro, and I had been a very, very skilled and gifted amateur wrestler for the United States national team, the world team, nice. High school, elementary, middle school, high school, international, national, state level, all state, national runner-up, all-American, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, who better to train me or get me in the business than Andre? So I called Andre, I called Frenchie, and Frenchie said, well, Andre's not here. He's in Japan on tour. And I said, well, when's he going to get back? And he said, for 8 weeks. And anybody who knows me well, I'm very impatient. I just, if I get something in my head, I got to do it then. So I couldn't wait 8 weeks, or did not want to wait 8 weeks. So I had met Ivan previously in like 88. I had sat next to Ivan on a flight from Seoul, Korea to Tokyo, Narita, and Narita to LAX, and LAX to Charlotte. Every leg I sat next to Ivan for whatever reason. So, and I wasn't Vladimir at the time. it was just Ivan Koloff that I was sitting next to. But I told him about my friendship with Andre. I told him about my amateur shooting accolades. And we talked forever, it just seemed like. And so when Frenchie told me that Andre wasn't going to be back for 8 weeks, I thought, well, damn, I've got to do something. And so I had lost Ivan's business card, or misplaced it. I don't recall. And I knew that Nikita had a gym, a weightlifting gym, aerobics gym, whatever you want to call it, in Concord, which is an hour and a half south of me. So I went down there, and fortunately he was there. And I wasn't Vladimir at this time. And Nikita was in there, and I asked him for Ivan's phone number because I was wanting to get trained. And so he accommodated me. I called Ivan. Ivan said, "Yeah, I remember you. You're Andre's friend, the shooter." And I said, "Yes, sir." And so we scheduled a time, and this must have been on a Wednesday or a Thursday. And we scheduled a time to come down to his camp, Ivan's training camp, which was on the east side of Charlotte in Indian Trails. That following Saturday, from the Wednesday or Thursday that I had or I had called him or what have you. I went in, and I had subsequently shaved my head at the time, and I really wasn't trying to be a Koloff. I just shaved my head for the summer, I think it was, or spring or what have you. And I had somewhat of a goatee. And when I walked in the gym or the training center, there were 5 or 6 guys in the 2 rings that they had in there. Ivan's partner was Bobby Fulton from the Fantastics. And Bobby was not there at that point. He was in Japan also. So when I walked in, everybody did a double take and a triple take, and they thought, "Damn, this guy looks exactly like Nikita, minus our bodies were different." But at the time, this was not gray or white. This was dark, and I was 270 pounds, and I'm right at 290 now, and I'm not in shape like I was back then. And they thought, "Oh my God, you look like Nikita." Everybody said that. Even Ivan said it. So the next week, Bobby Fulton had come back from his Japan tour, and he was there at the school early. And when I walked in, evidently Ivan had smartened him up to me coming there already. And when I walked in, Bobby was in the ring with somebody, and Bobby shouted over the rope, pointing at me, "That's Carl Koloff." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, Carl Koloff. No. Carl's not Russian, it's German." And so Ivan and Bobby approached me right then and said, "Listen, we want to make you a Koloff." Ivan's blessing. Ivan said, "We want to make you a Koloff. And we have plans to lengthen Ivan's career from a standpoint that he wouldn't have to be doing singles all the time. He could be doing tags. And we were going to work with Bobby in his small sequestered Southeast regional in Ohio territory." And it just snowballed from there. And Ivan, I said, I'm really not embracing the Carl Koloff. And Ivan said, "Well, come up with a name." And I thought, well, Vladimir Lenin was the father of communism, who Ivan kind of resembled with the beard and what have you. And I thought, well, what about Vladimir Koloff? And Ivan said, "That's who you are." So that's how I got in the business. And 8 days later, I had my first pro match. I barely knew how to lock up. Some might say I never knew how to lock up, but it snowballed. And I was Ivan's nephew. I was billed as the cousin to Nikita or as the sibling to Nikita, depend on who I worked for and how that promoter did it. And it just snowballed. ECW, NWA, the David Crockett NWA after the transition to
Dallas. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, actually it was Chattanooga. And
okay.
We did some TV down there at the studio in Chattanooga, and I had a world championship match against Terry Gordy, Bam Bam Gordy. But nice. David went, and this was after the no compete clause in the contract with Turner was, 7 years, 8 years, or what have you. So it was NWA. He could run again, or the Crockett's could run again. I did the power plant at WCW. Was with them for at least 3 months doing the power plant, doing thousands of squats a week, being screamed at by guys that never drew any money, yelled at all the time. and they were just trying to blow the guys up to get them to leave. And so,
how'd you get to the power plant though? Like,
Ole hired me.
Okay.
I went down and to Anderson, South Carolina, and Ivan took me down to Anderson, South Carolina to a WCW TV taping, and Dusty had the book, and Dusty kind of kayfabed us, and Doug Dillinger kind of really kayfabed Ivan, that wasn't going to let Ivan in the back. And I'm thinking, well, who in the hell's this prick not letting Ivan Koloff in the back of a WCW taping? This is Ivan Koloff, WWF World Champion.
Yep.
And I don't recall Dusty ever being WWF World Champion.
Yep.
But Dusty had the book, and then shortly after that, Ole got the book, and somehow Ole knew about me. And I know what it was. We were at Ivan was on one of the WCW slamborees at the old Omni, and it was a pay-per-view, and then they had an Old Timers Legends deal and what have you, and so we went down there, and I met Ole, I met Harley, Sting, Sid, Kevin Nash, all the Old Timers, Luthez, Harley, the names go on and on and on, and so Ole saw me, and Ole he said, "Can you guys stay?" I think this was on a Saturday. I don't recall the date. He said, "Can you stay until Monday?" And so we stayed until Monday, and we went down to CNN or Turner Broadcasting or Peachtree Plaza, wherever the hell it was. Went to the offices, and Ole went into Ole's office, and Ole and I had an exchange, and Ole liked my demeanor. And Ole stood up behind his desk and put his hand out to shake my hand, and I shook his hand, and he kind of pulled me against his desk. And when he pulled me against his desk, I thought, well, hell, okay, it's on. So I pulled him, and I damn near pulled him across his desk. And Ivan's like, "Oh my God, he loves that shit. Ole loved that attitude."
Yeah.
So Ole hired me, and he said, the only caveat is you got to go to the power plant. He said, "We know you've been trained. We know you're on the road. We know you're doing independence everywhere, but you got to go to the power plant and show us you can do this." And I thought, well, hell, I was at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs when I was in high school on the national team as an aspiring Olympic wrestler. And I thought, well, hell, the power plant can't be that bad. And it wasn't. All it was two guys who never drew any money that were still on the payroll, that they put them down there in the warehouse screaming and hollering at the guys that were coming in there to do tryouts, doing squats all day long until the guys puked and ran out of the building and never came back. And so, like I said, Ole hired me, excuse me, and I did a few house shows, and shortly after, like 3 months, Bischoff was there doing things, whatever. Gagne was there doing whatever. Jody Hamilton was there. Jody was good to me. He was nice to me. He was receptive. He was he was encouraging me. Jody was. He'd come down weekly, sometimes twice a week, and check out what I was doing. And Gagne came down there several times to check out what I was doing. And somehow Gagne knew me from the amateur wrestling. And I don't know how, but he knew me somehow from the amateur wrestling. Maybe it was from Laurent Soucy, who was a talent enhancement guy for Crockett back in the day in the old NWA, and then was a great talent enhancement guy for Vince back in the late 70s and early 80s. And he was an Olympic freestyle alternate on the 76 Olympic team or 80 Olympic team, 76. But he was pro. And so Gagne may have known me from him or from Brad Rangans, and Soucy, Laurent Soucy was best friends with Brad Rangans. And Brad was a Greco-Roman Olympic medalist, 72 or 76, before any U.S. guy ever got into really Soviet-dominated Greco wrestling in the 60s and 70s. But so I did the power plant, was still making my independent bookings all over with Ivan, living out of a hotel in Atlanta by myself, nobody else, going to Japan, going to Puerto Rico, going to Germany. And then Bischoff, Ole got fired, Bischoff took over. And when Bischoff took over, everything stopped because he had his own vision and he had his own guys and what have you. And so I just stopped going. I saw that I wasn't going to be utilized. And so I just stopped going to the power plant and just kept doing the independent circuit. And then Ivan and I went and worked for Joel Goodhart / Eddie Gilbert / Paul Heyman for Eastern Championship Wrestling before it morphed into Extreme. But I think Ivan and I were pivotal in making it Extreme because we did a series of TV tapings with them where we wrestled the Headhunters, 2 young guys from Puerto Rico, big heavy set guys from Puerto Rico. And we wrestled them in Japan and we wrestled them at ECW dozens of times. 4-way juice, tearing the building apart, tearing each other apart. And so I got to work some singles matches at ECW. I worked Stan Hansen. I worked Hawk from the Road Warriors. I worked Tito Santana for a World Heavyweight Championship match for the ECW belt. Then did tags against several guys, Sandman, Salvador Balomo. There were 2 smaller guys, and I can't remember those guys' names. But we worked up there, I don't know, 6 months for Gilbert and Heyman and Goodhart. And then I guess we went back to Japan for another show. And then we came back, and I think Cornette was starting his Smoky Mountain endeavors. And Cornette lived in Charlotte at the time. And I was really good friends with Stan Lane from the Midnight Express. And so that was a direct link to Cornette. And one day I showed up at the camp, at Ivan's camp, that he was still running it, even though I was doing things myself and with him. I was still going down there occasionally. I showed up there one day just out of the blue to just get in the ring and mess around. And Cornette and Bobby and Ivan were behind the building out in the driveway or the parking area, and they had a ring set up out there. And Cornette was fitting the ring that was already assembled outside with the Smoky Mountain canvas, the Smoky Mountain aprons, Smoky Mountain turnbuckles. And so then that's when Ivan and I were hired in with Cornette to do all the Smoky Mountain stuff. And we were I believe we were slated to be the heel tag team, and working the Fantastics, and then Tim Horner and Brian Lee and whoever else the other baby faces were.
Rock and Roll.
And then Rock and Roll. Yeah. And then Ivan and I got fired because I refused to sign one of the waivers. And my refusal to do the waiver was based on the waiver release was going to be granted to an individual who was going to use the tapes in his territory. And I had a financial discrepancy with that person. And I certainly wasn't, from a business standpoint, wasn't going to allow somebody that I had a financial discrepancy with to utilize my image, likeness thereof, et cetera, on a wrestling tape for free to that person to show in his territory or his TV market, little TV market. And so we got released, and I guess a lot of promoters knew that about me, that I wasn't gonna. If you say over the phone, we want you for this amount of money for this many dates, that's a binding contract, and that's legal in the United States. That's a litigious agreement. So we got fired from there, but it was just another stepping stone, another feather in my cap, and I have no regrets. Cornette liked me. Cornette put me over real strong when he was with WWF doing some TV work for them, and I went up there and did a tryout in Canton, Cleveland, Erie, and Buffalo. And Cornette put me over real strong, real strong. And like the morning of the third day or that afternoon, I got to the building in Erie, and Luna Vachon came up to me, she was a wonderful person. Her and David came up to me, Vampire, whatever he was, Gangrel.
Vampire Warrior.
Gangrel. Yeah, Vampire Warrior, Gangrel. Her and David came up to me, and I don't know if they were married or I know they were together, but they came up to me like behind the building in the parking lot, and Luna said, "Congratulations." And I said, "On what?" And she said, "They're going to hire you." And I said, "Really? That's the first I've heard." She goes, "No, they're really going to hire you. And they like the way you move. They like your body. They like everything about you. And it's going to be good money." Well, after we did that show that night, I did another dark match, and I can't remember. I think it was Reno Riggins that I worked. I'm not positive, but I think it was Reno. I went back to the hotel, and a lot of the talent was at the hotel, and one of the road agents made a pass at me, and it's not the one you would think.
Oh.
And yeah, I'm not going to mention names, but it's not the one you think. And I said, "Listen, I'm not like that." I said, "I don't know what gave you that idea or that impression, but I'm not like that." And I had an early flight we had to get to Buffalo the next day. And they did not use me in Buffalo. And they used another guy named Mike Halleck, who they later put the gimmick on. But I flew out, and I never heard back from him. And I don't know if it was because the agent made a pass and I turned him down. And I'm not like that at all.
Right.
But they gave the gimmick to Halleck, and Halleck became the Mantaur. And Scott Hall saw me. I saw Scott, and Scott liked me. Sean liked me. Yoko liked me. Alpha loved me. The Samoans loved me. Kevin Nash, he and I got along great. But Scott told me 10 years later, I don't know how long later, in Orlando, he said, "We thought they were going to really use you, but I guess you should be glad that they didn't use you, because the gimmick that they were going to put you in was voted by the fans as the worst gimmick ever." The Mantaur, half man, half bull. And no discredit to Mike Halleck. I mean, he did what they asked, but it was just the concept of the singlet with fur all over it, and then the headpiece that was reminiscent of a high school cheerleading mascot headpiece. The buffalo. It was a buffalo head. It wasn't a bull.
Yeah.
And the Mantaur was a bull, half man, half bull from Greek mythology. And it was a buffalo head. And so Halleck had to wear that damn thing out there, and it was awful. It was just awful. And so Scott told me all that. And yeah, I regret not having any type of career with the Fed, but I had a good career otherwise. And I worked a lot of superstars all over the world. Jake, Road Warriors, Demolition, Bundy, Ronnie Garvin, Tito Santana, Valentine, Terry Funk, Chris Benoit. Then it just goes on and on and on. I bet you I worked the Chief, Wahoo McDaniels, probably 100 times. Andre. And Andre was one of my great friends.
Where'd you wrestle Andre at?
Here in North Carolina. Yeah.
Just a small like indie show with Andre? That's awesome.
Yeah. It was his last show in the United States. It was July 4th, 1992 in Pembroke, North Carolina at the park. And he had a show in November of 92 in Mexico City, which was his last North American show.
Yep.
And then he had a show in December in 92 in Japan, which he could barely get to the ring. And then he came home and had gone to his dad's funeral in January, late January, and then he passed in early February. And I still have a copy of the poster from the match. They're in in Pembroke, North Carolina. So, you know, and the names go on. Kerry Von Erich, I was the last guy to wrestle Kerry. Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Honky Tonk Man, Road Warriors, Animal and Hawk, tagged against them with Nikolai Volkov, the Samoans, or excuse me, the Head Shrinkers, Fatu and Samu. And Sam loved me, absolutely loved me. And I think because his dad, Alpha, really, really liked me and took care of me. So that's how I got in it. That's where I went, and that's how I did it. So
pretty like amazing though, as far as just going back to the Mantaur thing, like WWF at that point, it kind of fits with those horrible gimmicks. Remember they're like Duke the Dumpster and their TL Hopper, like it fits in, but it's just such a bad gimmick. I remember you were mentioning this to me off air, obviously, but they had sketches and stuff. Were you the guy like on the sketch of Mantaur?
I was
like,
the guy on the sketch. I was the guy on the sketch because Hatlick was bigger. He was thicker. Mm-hmm. He was broader and thicker than me. And I wasn't chiseled like Nikita, but I wasn't thick and broad like Halleck. And I was the guy in the sketches. That's right. I was there. They were measuring me, the girls in wardrobe or seamstresses or what have you. And that's one thing I was amazed at. They had not a crew, but two or three or four girls, women, and they had it seemed like half of one of the tractor and trailers was full of nothing but the stuff that they did to create outfits, singlets, bodysuits, right there at the shows, jackets, everything. And so the girls were fitting me, and one of them said, "You got the biggest set of calves of anybody we've ever seen, except for the great big huge fat guys." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that." And so they're fitting me and measuring me and everything. And I just kind of look over, and there's one of those square boxes with reinforced corners and chrome silver latches and handles and shit. It looks like a movie scene box that they carry equipment in and all that. And on top of that was some paperwork, and there were drawings there. And I saw it, and it had the Mantaur, and she was fitting me. And I looked again, and it said Koloff / Brantley, and Brantley's my last name. And I thought, oh hell. But then I saw the damn, and see the headdress that the sketch showed was not what Halleck was wearing. You know, I don't
actually
know
better.
No, it was worse.
Oh, worse.
Well, the sketch was better than.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, the sketch was much better. And it was a buffalo. It looked like a buffalo head. And I was told it was going to be a bull head, like a Spanish fighting bull versus a Western Plains American bison. And that's what it looked like. It looked like they had taken Bucknell University's bison mascot and used that head. And Halleck, no discredit to him, he went through the ropes several times with the headdress on. and the headdress came off in the ropes, just like kind of reminiscent of the Shockmaster with Tug.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, and I worked Tenta. I worked Brutus, Valentine, Anvil, Rock and Roll dozens of times, Midnight Express. Sometimes those things come to my head and I just spit them out when I'm thinking of them. But yeah, I saw the sketches, and that was one thing that impressed me. And I never really got smartened up to the business. I kind of had to learn as we went because Ivan didn't smarten me up as to the way things worked. But I was impressed not only from the wardrobe standpoint of it, but I was also impressed by the art department, how they had all this stuff planned out. You know, they were just looking for the body type to put into the phenotype, you know, to put into the character. So.
Did you meet Vince McMahon?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I met Vince several times. Matter of fact, I saw Vince up there. I had met Vince at Andre's funeral. I was a honorary pallbearer to the family, to Frenchie and Jackie, because of my friendship from the cattle, and so when Andre died, Ivan, my younger brother, and I went down to Charlotte and picked Ivan up, and we went on over to Ellerby, and so when we get like a mile on the west side of the ranch on Highway 73, the Highway Patrol, North Carolina Highway Patrol, the state police, they had the highway blocked off, and we get there and they look in the car, and the guy said, okay, said Ivan and Vladimir Koloff and Mark Brantley, and so he got on his microphone. He said, I got the Russians. And so we get up there to the gate, and they told us what kind of car I was in, and they just motioned us right through. And so when we get there, Moolah was there, Nelson Royal was there, Rene Goulet, Wahoo. God, there was another legend. I think Swede Hansen. I've got a photograph of it somewhere, of a bunch of the talent. Macho Man was there. Pat Patterson was there. Macho, Pat, Hogan, and Vince all showed up in the same Lincoln Town car. Evidently it was a rental out of Charlotte or Raleigh. And so I met Vince there, and you know, Vince was Vince, and you know, I knew it wasn't the place to approach him about anything. I just told him who I was, and he said, well, you look really good. And you know, that's a canned response from Vince. But you know, for me to try to solicit employment at my friend's funeral, and Andre was my friend. I wasn't at the funeral because it was Andre the Giant. It was Andre Rusimov, who was Carl Brantley's friend, who I had known since '87 when they bought cattle from me. And that's how we developed our friendship. So it just wouldn't have been right for me to solicit employment. And I didn't know the underlying heat that Ivan had with Vince from the 70s, from the late 70s. There was an altercation that I kind of really feel that is why Ivan got blackballed for all those years and was never put into the legitimate Hall of Fame. You know, they just kind of threw him a bone, or threw the family a bone posthumously, which I thought was horrible. I mean, they got guys that they got gimmicks in it and never drew a damn dime, and this is a WWF World Champion that they're keeping out of the Hall of Fame.
That'd be Bruno after Bruno's 2,800-day title run. Yeah. And then they took it off of Ivan shortly thereafter and put it on Pedro for whatever reason. I don't know. And then I think it transitioned to Backlund after that. I think I don't know the progression. No, Stan Stasiak, then back to Bruno, then Superstar, then Backlund. So It was a few guys, but Bruno had it twice for like another 1,200 days.
Oh, did he really? You know, I met Bruno. I never worked him. I met him up in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you know the referee, the old NWA Mid-Atlantic confidant referee promoter from Yonkers named Sal Corrente.
Very, very familiar. Yep.
Yeah, Sal was a dear friend of mine, and he was a dear friend of Bruno's, and we were wrestling in, I want to say we were at Penn State University. And I wrestled Tracy Smothers up there. And we came back through Pittsburgh and did something in Pittsburgh. I can't remember what it was. And Bruno was there, and Dominic DiNucci was there, and they were class exemplified. And Bruno kind of pulled me to the side, and he said, Vladimir, he said, I've watched your work. And I said, well, I appreciate that. And he said, if you would have come along 10 years earlier, you would have been a megastar, quote. And coming from Bruno, I appreciated that.
Yeah, it's huge.
Do I have regrets? Absolutely. Did I do well? Wrestling-wise, I never got to where I wanted to go. Financially, I did well. I fell into an alternative gimmick from a wrestling standpoint that I did very, very well with. But yeah, so at Andre's funeral, I met all those superstars. And it's funny, we all lined up they had a big, huge group photo, probably 30 wrestlers, local independent guys that knew Andre, the legends that knew Andre, the legendary old timers that knew Andre. Oh, Abe Jacobs was there. And so they had a group photo, and I'm over there talking to Frenchie doing something, and Frenchie yells in his North Carolina French accent. He says, wait for the Russian, wait for the Russian. So there was no place to get other than on each end of the photo. And I didn't think I was going to be able, I thought there was too many people to get in the photo. So I went around to the back of where everybody was, and over by a tree was a cinder block, a big masonry brick about 16 and 18 inches long and 10 inches wide, 10 inches deep. I turned it on its side and I stood on it, and I put this hand and this hand on Hogan's shoulder and Macho Man's shoulder, and my head is that much above Macho Man and Hogan's head in the photograph.
That's great.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So, and so, I'd met Vince later on up there. I saw Vince at all those TV tapings and et cetera, and it just never happened.
Did you have that classic conversation with Vince where you mentioned something that you did, like the cattle, and then he's like, well, I'm going to turn you into a Minotaur. You know what I mean? Because like Barry Darso mentioned Repo Man, and all of a sudden, like, or how he used to repossess, now he's a Repo Man, like stuff like that. Did that happen or no?
They knew that I raised the cattle. They all knew it, and they knew my association or my friendship with Andre from the cattle prior to the wrestling business. And I think they felt in the back of their head that, yeah, he'll jump on this gimmick. And I probably would have if it just seemed so damn hokey how they had it all. I mean, the singlet was a one strap across the body, kind of like Andre's, but it was brown, and it was made of the fur material that you would get at Sally Joe's or Mary Joe's fabric store, and then the head. Oh, and they wanted me to paint horns on my head. Yeah, and I probably would have come a little closer to having prosthetic horns put in my head for real than to paint this shit on there and then and then be adorned with that. You know, he didn't wrestle with that paper mache or fiberglass cheerleading mascot head on, but he went to the ring with it, went through the ropes. And as I said earlier, it came off several times and just kind of looked stupid. But so it just, yeah, I think when you guys, when people go up there, they do a Q&A with you, whether it's in Stamford or whether it's on the road or wherever you do your tryout or one of the pay-per-views. If they're interested, they do a little bit of a Q&A with you to see what your personal life is like, and then they try to extract things from that. And one thing that I do know, like the boy Andrew, I don't remember his last name, he dated Stephanie for a while. They called him Test.
Andrew Martin. Yep.
Yeah, and they asked him if he did anabolics. He said, "I've done a little bit of Test." That's where the name came from, Test.
Wow.
And then like the guy Drozdov.
Yep.
Vince asked him what one of his special talents was. He said, "Well, I can puke or regurgitate on command." And he did right there in Vince's office, puked in it. And so Vince said, "We're going to call you Puke." You know, they tag you with these things that are kind of absurd, I think, to see if you're going to take it, for one, and then if you take it, they're going to control you, for two. I mean, it's like the greatest modern day talent of all, Steve Austin. I think Vince made him shave his head. From the Hollywood Blondes, long hair, blonde, stunning Steve Austin. I think Vince made him shave his head as a rib. I really do. And he ran with it. And he made millions. So, case in point. But like when I was in Cleveland on the tryouts, Bushwhackers came to me, and I'd worked with them several times on the independent circuit already. And so, I don't remember if it was Butch or Luke. One of them came to me and said, "Oh, hey, mate, just talk to Vince, and he says he wants you to shave." And I said, "What?" He said he wants you to shave your body. And I'm covered in body hair. I would have been better off as George the Animal Steel Jr.
Yeah.
I'm serious. You know, I would have gone for that. But they were ribbing me, that Vince told them to rib me, say, tell Vladimir we want him to shave his body. And this was like 5 minutes before my match. I'm like, how in the hell am I going to shave my body? So, I don't know. I think it was a lot of things they were trying to do to talent to see if they could get them to do it. And then once they did it, they felt like they could control you. Because everybody knew that if you didn't do it, there were 5, 6, 7 guys behind you.
Yep.
That were willing to do that and even more. You know, shave your head, paint yourself green, run to the ring on fire backwards. Well, if you didn't do it, somebody else is going to do it. And Dusty Wolf told me that. And Dusty was a great, and I hate to use the word jobber. They use talent enhancement now, but Dusty was a great job guy. Thousands of matches, I guess. He wrote a book, The Journeyman of the Life of a Journeyman, or something like that. Because I was on tour overseas with him in a few countries and became pretty good friends with him. But, you know, he told me a lot of the road stories and what have you. But it was, you know, that's the way they found their superstars, you know.
Definitely. And it's funny because Mike Halleck obviously ends up being Mantaur. So it's like, you know, they're obviously we're going to use that gimmick with or without you. You know what I mean? Like they were going to put somebody.
Yeah, he was on the tryout with me. He was in Canton, Cleveland, Erie, and Buffalo on that same deal. And he only worked. I worked Canton, Cleveland, and Erie, and then he worked Buffalo. He didn't work any of the previous 3, but he was there. And I remember him because he was the younger brother of the guy that was wrestling in WCW called PN News. And if I recall correctly, he was the younger brother of that guy. And I know he was built exactly like him.
Yep. Cousin, I believe.
Say that again?
Cousin, I believe. I think they're cousins.
Yeah. Like Brian Lee and Undertaker. Supposedly. I don't know. So they put him in it. And like I said earlier, I saw Scott somewhere in Orlando or something, and Scott Hall, and he told me the story that the fans had voted it the worst gimmick ever in WWF, but that was during the cartoon era, or at the very end of the cartoon era, so
there was a bunch of silly gimmicks at that point. It was getting a little out of hand. Yeah, it was absurd.
And somebody asked me up there, I remember this definitively. I'm sitting on a locker room bench, and Luger was there also. I'm sitting on a locker room bench there in Canton, Ohio, at the old Municipal Stadium, or whatever it's called, Municipal Auditorium. And I'm sitting, and Rodney's sitting next to me, and Offutt is sitting next to me on the other side. And somebody came up to me, and I don't recall who it was. It wasn't Arnold Scanlon, because he liked me also because of my friendship with Andre. Scanlon, whatever you want to say, however you want to pronounce it. I can't remember who it was, and they said, "Kid, what's your gimmick?" And I said, "My gimmick is I'm a wrestler." And I guess they didn't like that answer. So hell, it is what it is.
They want a gimmick, right? They want you to say gimmick.
They want a gimmick, and I know the direction of the company at that time was going towards more of the costume, comic book, character gimmicks, blah blah blah.
Definitely.
I think one of the demises of my opinion, even though it did make money and drew, was the Doink the Clown, because my dear friend who's deceased, and he was a very good friend of mine, Mike Hagstrand, Road Warrior Hawk. Hawk told me that was his idea for the demonic clown. And then they kind of morphed that idea into more of the goofy.
Yeah,
clown.
when Matt Bourne left. Yep.
Yeah. And I think what was it? Matt, Ray Apollo, Lombardi, and Kern.
Yes.
I think Matt Bourne and Kern were the two best of the gimmick. But nevertheless, they made money with it. But I just, and being on the independent circuit, I saw a lot of different doinks
yeah.
all over the country.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing one that was like 115 pounds. I'm like, come on, like this isn't Doink. Come on.
Yeah. And that's one of my rubs today. Everybody says they're a pro wrestler, and they're built like Spike Dudley or Mickey Whipwreck, thin, small guys.
Yep.
And they're not built like Scott Steiner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad but true. Yep.
That's the distance of the periphery, or whatever you want to call it.
I agree. I totally agree. So as we head towards the wind in here, head towards the finish, give us everything you got coming up with the Koloff and the Koloff legacy and the Koloff family dynasty.
Not this weekend, but the 21st, we're in New York City, actually Brentwood, New York, which is just across the bridge from JFK in
the
Brentwood.
Big event. Yep.
Big event. Yeah, big event. Suffolk County Arena, the big event, New York, the biggest wrestling expo out there. We're up there. Then I'm in Indiana at a card show the following weekend, and then we're in I want to say Tampa, at the GrappleCon. We're at River City WrestleCon in Jacksonville. We're at the Love of Wrestling. One of those is called the Love of Wrestling. I think that's River City. We're at the Love of Wrestling somewhere. I can't remember.
England.
No, okay, yeah, we're there. We're tentatively there next year.
Oh, okay.
I remember that. Then we're at Herb Simmons Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling, the St. Louis WrestleCon out there. Yeah, it's big. It's big.
Yep.
Then we're in Houston. Then we're back in Tennessee at WrestleFear. We've got the Rock and Roll Express Tag Team Tournament in Bristol, Tennessee. We're there. The Koloffs are going to be there, and we're going to be creating havoc there. I assure you, we're not not wrestling, but we're going to be involved.
Love it.
Then we're at the New England Fan Fest up in outside of Boston, between Boston and Providence. I just can't. I don't even have my book in front of me. It's in my truck. I think there's 15 to 20 bookings this year already, and our talent agency that we're working for is New Breed Talent and Wrestle Breed. Leon Hollinger out of New York. He's getting new bookings for us. Seems like weekly now. Nashville, Tennessee, also possibly a wrestling con in Richmond, Virginia next year. 𝐓𝐇𝐄𝐑 in Winston-Salem at the end of at Thanksgiving this year, which we will be debuting the Koloff family dynasty four-piece action figures. It'll be two-piece sets. My set will be me and Ivan, and the other set will be Nikita and Neil. They didn't have the die or whatever you want to call it to make a four-piece box, and so it's going to be two figures in one and two figures in the other. And I'll be in there with Ivan, and Nikita will be with Neil, and we're going to debut those through Asylum Toys, Nerd Vault, and New Breed Talent Agency at the 𝐓𝐾𝐑 convention in Winston-Salem this year. Last year, they debuted Demolition Axe and Smashes action set. Then we'll be at the Gathering in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is at the end of June, I believe it is.
Guys are busy.
Yeah, we're very busy. And then I have personally several sports memorabilia card shows that I'm booked on as well, all over. Charlottesville, Virginia, this coming weekend. Indianapolis in 2 weeks. I'm at a show in Indianapolis in 2 weeks, and they've got the Squared Circle wrestling convention up there the same weekend that I'm at a card show up there, ironically. Houston, Texas, Mobile, Alabama. Las Vegas, Nevada, the WrestleCon, which is coming up next month, I believe it is, that runs in conjunction with WrestleMania.
Yep.
That's in Las Vegas next month. And so WrestleCon is not part of WrestleMania, but it runs parallel with the two big World Wrestling Federation pay-per-view.
Very big show. Yep.
Huge. They're Las Vegas Convention Bureau is expecting over 100,000 people to be in Las Vegas just for the wrestling event. And I think it's 3 days or 4 days. And then we'll be in Minneapolis at SummerSlam, or there'll be one up there running parallel with SummerSlam. So we'll be there as well. I think Toronto next year, and I think there's going to be more next year that we get hooked into when all these promoters find out about it. And if you're interested in booking the Koloff family. Nikita, myself, Vladimir, and our nephew Neil, with the Koloff family dynasty regalia and what have you. Go to Wrestle Breed Entertainment on Facebook and New Breed Wrestling on Facebook, and it's Leon Hollinger on Facebook, or Brady. Excuse me, the agent is the guy that does all the Facebook stuff is Brady Alexander, and he has kind of like a comic book blonde hair Thor looking guy as the profile picture. And if you want to find me, it's Vladimir Koloff on Facebook. But be careful, because there's an individual that has grabbed my name without permission, and my picture's on there of me back in the day with the singlet, dark beard, and what have you. This guy has uses my name to this day without permission, and he wears a mask and a full body suit. So that is not me. And if you want to find me otherwise on Facebook, it's under my given name, Carl Richard Brantley. And if you want, hell, I'll just give you my email. Do you think I should give my email out?
You can, if you don't mind getting messages or booking.
Yeah, I don't mind. I'll just, I mean, if they're just, if there's crap, I'll just spam it or whatever, block it. It's Pile Driver, PYLEDRIVER, one word, Pile Driver with a Y, 1964 at yahoo.com.
Right. Awesome. Vladimir Koloff, thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it tonight.
Hey, man, I enjoy these things. It's kind of morphed, and, I know I'm long-winded, and I know some of my anecdotes are, lengthy, but it is what it is.
But they're great.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you
if you're in those areas, Boston, Tampa, Jacksonville, Charlotte, Winston-Salem, St. Louis, New York City, Houston, Texas, if you're in any of those areas and you see these wrestling cons coming about, and we're going to be there, come by and get some pictures with us. We'll put the chain around your neck and get Nikita to give you the Russian sickle. I'll give you a suplex into a few chairs. We'll just have a good time. We'll live it up.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it tonight.
Poz, thank you.